So, with it being Martin Luther King Day here in the United States, just wanted to do a little video on Martin Luther King. This is an article from Common Dreams, and where did that go? Click that. Oh, sorry. And then, so basically, the mainstream narrative that is presented about Martin Luther King is quite a bit different than the radical revolutionary that Martin Luther King was, and the things that he believed and supported and advocated for. And Reverend Dr. William J. Barber, the second one of the leaders of the the Poor People's Campaign, the Poor People's Movement, has some pretty awesome words here on MLK. The real King, Barber explained, found himself having to take on society he loved so much he had to criticize it, a society he properly diagnosed as having neurotic sickness and a septic commitment to racism, poverty, and militarism that was destroying its soul and ripping apart its moral promises and possibilities. And unfortunately, the U.S. has not moved on from those things whatsoever. I wouldn't say one more than the other, but I mean, look at the military. The United States spend more than like the next 10 countries combined. It accounts for like 53% of the US's discretionary budget goes to death and destruction via the military, and we don't have things like Medicare for all, free college, universal pre-K, a better school system, adequate infrastructure, adequate transportation, green energy, all these things, and you can look at it. Massive amount of money is going to bombs and weapons, and we don't have these things, these necessities on the home front. You can't have one without the other. And then he talks about poverty. There's so much poverty and inequality in the United States, especially if you are a person of color or a single mom. You're more likely to be living in poverty. The federal poverty level that was created in 1969, when it was created, food costs were about, they used a 1955 food survey study, which food accounted for about a third of all household costs. Now it's about a seventh. So at the time when these poverty levels were created in the US in the late 60s, like I said, it was about 50% of median household income. Now it accounts for about 28%. It's only been adjusted for cost of living increases since then. It's horribly inaccurate. If there was actually an accurate poverty level reading, it would be probably close to half the population or more. Racism, obviously, we still live in a very racist, white supremacist society. I mean, the United States was created on the genocide and erasure of the indigenous people that occupied this land before the Europeans came over and colonized it. And then when I think it was the Catholic Church decreed that the Native Americans, or I should say indigenous people here, couldn't be used as slaves, they deemed it okay to take people from Africa, bring the African people over here and enslave them. And we've been enacting out that legacy of racism and white supremacy since the founding of the United States. So it's just deeply disturbing. And another really good resource, if you want to hear MLK in some of his own words, go check out Democracy Now's program today. Just type it in democracynow.org. You can listen or watch, or a combination of the two. Some great speeches that Dr. King gave. One was, I believe, the mountaintop speech. I think that was the one that he gave the day before he was assassinated, right? And then, yeah, so Dr. King was a hugely anti-capitalist. You could probably view him as a socialist or a democratic socialist. The evils of capitalism are as real as the evils of militarism and evils of racism. I mean, that's pretty damn clear. That's why he was castigated at the time, in print by outlets like Time Magazine, were basically, I don't know, calling him a communist sympathizer, and saying he was simpatico with Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam, which yeah, you'd see if MLK was alive today saying the things that he said in the 60s, he would be getting criticized in our mainstream media. I have no doubt about that. No doubt about that. So check this out. Just a few days later, on April 4th, 1967, exactly 1 year before King was assassinated, he delivered an infamous speech at Riverside Church in New York City condemning the Vietnam War. He called for an end to the nightmarish conflict, as well as for the nation to undergo a radical revolution of values, saying in part, here's the quote that I've highlighted, "A true revolution will lay hand on the world order and say of war, this way of settling differences is not just. This business of burning human beings with napalm, of filling our nation's homes with orphans and widows, of injecting poisonous drugs of hate into the veins of people normally humane, of sending men home from dark and bloody battlefields, physically handicapped and psychologically deranged, cannot be reconciled with wisdom, justice, and love." Boom. Does it get any more just clear and succinct, bringing it back to wisdom, justice, and love? You can't you can't wage war. You can't have these conflicts and say you're doing it in the vein of wisdom, justice, or love. Boom. And that's, I mean, he would be even more just just um, just sad and angered and dismayed by what the U.S. military is doing right now. It's expanded to such a huge extent. It might be even unrecognizable from MLK's time. Honestly, just the huge empire that the U.S. has created. It's like we have over the United States government, I should say, has over 700 military bases. The next closest country has like 10 or something like that. It's just nuts. And again, it's a huge waste of money. It's unethical. It's immoral what we're doing to those countries and those peoples abroad. It's unethical and immoral because we can't have these much needed social service programs, like Medicare for all, like free college, like a Green New Deal, like better education system, like a green infrastructure, all of these different things. How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? But, we can spend more money on the military than the next 10 countries combined, and most politicians don't bat an eye to it. I mean, it's pretty nuts. Let's see. Oh, this is Greenwald. What I always found, Glenn Greenwald, one of the founders of The Intercept. What I always found most impressive, most powerful about King's April 4th speech is the connection he repeatedly made between American violence in the world and its national character. Endless war wasn't just destructive in its own right, but it's something that ensures that America's soul becomes totally poisoned. fosters spiritual death, perpetuates the malady within the American spirit, and elevates the Western arrogance of feeling that it has everything to teach others and nothing to learn from, and some to pursue endless wars to worship the god of hate and bow before the altar of retaliation. This is the overarching point that drives our current debate about war and militarism through today. The debasement of the national psyche, the callousness toward continuous killing, the belief that the U.S. has not only the right but the duty to bring violence anywhere in the world that it wants, that is what lies at the heart of America's ongoing embrace of endless war. A rotted national soul does not indeed enable leaders to wage endless war, but endless war also rots national soul, exactly as King warned. At times, this seems to be an inescapable self-perpetuating cycle of degradation. Wow. Whew, that's pretty good. Yeah. And let's see, this is Bernie. Let us do more than honor and remember Dr. King. Let's be faithful to his revolutionary spirit and his call for a radical revolution of values. Boom. I mean, again, Bernie just demonstrating why he is the only choice, pointing to MLK's calling for his radical revolution of values and going back to those things like love, wisdom, justice, kindness, those type of things. Caring about your fellow person. Not, what did he say? In one of those speeches, I don't know if it was that speech in 67 or maybe the mountaintop speech, he was talking about how relating the story, this person was thinking, somebody needed some type of aid or assistance, and this person was thinking, what is it going to do to me? Like, what's going to happen to me if I stop and help this person? Or coming from the perspective of what might happen to this person if I don't stop, check on them, see if I can help them, see if I can assist them in some way. So it's like, what could I get out of helping this person? Or what would happen if I don't stop and see what they need? That just really stuck with me, and I think that just really encapsulates the type of person that Martin Luther King really was to his core, and that he was so committed to, love, wisdom, justice, kindness, that he was willing to put his life on the line for the things that he believed, and did it in a non-violent way, but using direct action, nonviolent tactics. And he was such a powerful and impactful person, and it does his legacy a real disservice to not honor it for all of his record on during the civil rights movement, but also being anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, and remembering the whole scope and breadth of him. So this is more. Dr. King was a nonviolent revolutionary who wanted to see our nation undergo a radical revolution of values against not just the evils of Jim Crow and segregation, but also the triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism. And I think if MLK was alive today and he had a pick, I think he would be supporting Bernie, because he's honestly the one that channels that vision that MLK was articulating, eradicating poverty, undoing the evils of militarism and racism, making sure we have a just society for everybody, no matter your color or income level or identity or anything like that. Nina Turner, I think she would make an awesome VP. Many will praise his name today, but who will have the courage to walk his steps? In the months leading to his assassination, King rallied against white supremacy, the Vietnam War, and imperialism. But above all, his final focus was on poverty and economic justice. Yep. I believe when he was assassinated, he was it Memphis, Tennessee, I believe. Let me know if I'm wrong on the location. I should know that, but he was down there in support of these striking sanitation workers, trying to help them get better benefits or whatnot. And he was just an amazing person, and I feel like we can learn so much about him, about how to be better, you know, activists and advocates, and people that want to create social change, about how he led with love and kindness and understanding and nonviolent direct action, but willing to make huge sacrifices for things he believed in. He was just amazing. Amazing. Mehdi Hassan, that's from MLK. We are saying that something is wrong with capitalism. There must be better distribution of wealth, and maybe America must move toward a democratic socialism. As I was saying before, he was, a democratic socialist at least, or maybe a full-blown, socialist. Mark Clement Hill, professor. Today, let us remember Martin Luther King as he was a black, radical, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, revolutionary Christian who died as an enemy of the state. Anything else is just a lie. It's true, but again, this is the message that if you just read them in the school textbooks, or you watch or listen on mainstream media outlets, they're not going to give you this whole other side of MLK. They're just going to give you the civil rights version and take out all of the other stuff about the anti-capitalism, the anti-imperialism, the anti-poverty, the all that other stuff. Yeah. So it's a cruel jest to say a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his bootstraps. Let's see. Martin Luther King. He was suspected to be because the U.S. government and the FBI in particular were trying to take him down and like blackmail him and all of these things. They were horribly out to get MLK when he was alive. Candice Benbow wrote for Essence in 2018, he was suspected to be a communist, considered a race baiter, and was deemed the most dangerous man in America by the FBI. But the past few decades have canonized him into sainthood, and it is virtually impossible to travel in many communities without seeing a street named in his honor. The universal adoration of Dr. King can only be described as a willful decision to mischaracterize his person and work. Detaching Dr. King from his radical socialist left-leaning politics is the only way many Americans who now praise him can do so with what they think is a clear conscience. That just makes me, I learned about these aspects of MLK not super long ago, but once I did, I was like, wow, there was so much more to MLK than I thought, and it was just more positive things. I mean, if you're really concerned about, humanity, you have to be anti-capitalist, which MLK was. If you're really concerned about humanity, both of the people in the US and abroad, you have to be anti-imperialist, anti-militaristic. You have to be anti-capitalist if you want to get rid of poverty, which he was. He said, he was at least a democratic socialist, or maybe a full-blown socialist, and he just had such a will and desire to use his time on earth to create so much positive change in the world. And look, his words from decades ago are still reverberating, so powerfully into the future, that it's just, a real message to people that want to try to create positive change in the world, to really stand up for your convictions. And sometimes you have to be willing to pay a price, and not everybody's willing to do that. MLK was. He knew he wasn't long for this earth, making the kinds of speeches that he did, and having the enemies that he did, both within the government and outside of it. And he didn't care. He knew he was, for him, doing God's work, living his true life's purpose of fighting against the forces of capitalism and imperialism and racism, and trying to do the best he could to affect positive change. And we've seen that he has done a great deal, and we can learn, can continue to learn so much from what MLK did, and what he stood for. And there's still a lot of work to be done, unfortunately, in those areas. But we can learn a little bit about how to go about it from people like Martin Luther King Jr. Rest in peace.